Hey guys, we're back with a major update video, and a major breakthrough has been made. The system is now so finely tuned and so finely refined that we have a generator that consumes no power, but yet outputs wireless power. It now runs off of a 9-volt rechargeable battery instead of the bigger 12-volt Lifey PO4 batteries. The voltage on the 9-volt is 9.53 volts DC. The current consumption is now nothing because we're resonantly feedbacking the power from our receiver coils back into the battery, and we're not consuming any power now. But yet, we still have a very small wireless output between an earth-ground connection and a wireless resonant receiver coil. And to show you that that coil is actually doing it, if I disconnect the battery, it goes out. The light has gone out. I connect it back, it comes back on. So, what made this possible is the addition of this metal plate energy collector down here. And it's interesting that I'm going to have to try bigger plates now, too. It's just a metal plate down here. Show you underneath it if I can flip it around. Just a metal plate. So yeah, I'm basically going to try and explain it a bit better. We did some major organizing, major upgrading in here a bit, and in the shop down cellar. Give you a look under everything. There's nothing hidden under anything. So, pretty clean setup. Back here's just all the supplies. We build stuff, put it in a box, ship it out. Been ridiculously busy. So, here is the system. It is almost becoming maybe like a MORAY valve replica device. It could be. So what is essentially happening is we have an earth-grounded ringer circuit, and it's powered off of a 9-volt battery. And it seems all we basically need to achieve the wireless power is resonance and a switching action. And the more efficient you can achieve that switching action, the better wireless power you will get. And we fine-tuned it now with a 50K 5-watt carbon film resistor and a 20K 1-watt carbon film potentiometer for fine-tuning. So the main circuit is the gold one, the yellow coil here, and the three coils here are all wireless receivers, and they have their power outputs combined, feeding back into the battery, dropping our current consumption to 0. As you'll see, if I detune the system with the potentiometer, our current increase should go up, which it did, and the light got brighter because we are now detuned. So I detune the system. Our battery voltage is now dropping. We have a readable current on the meter now, and these are all new meters. 5.6 milliamps power consumption. More wireless power present. And I notice the wireless power is very present near the battery too. And even the voltmeter, because anything connected to the circuit becomes part of the circuit. So now I will try and fine-tune it again with the potentiometer to get it to the point where it consumes no power when the resonant feedback takes over, which it just about has. There. We now have the resonant feedback taking over via fine-tuning from the potentiometer. Our voltage is climbing. And we have an output. a dim output, but nonetheless it is a wireless output. What is the most interesting is the distance at which the wireless power can be made manifest. The wireless power is coming from the wireless receiver coil. It's coming off of the wireless receiver coil between the LED light and an earth connection that goes into my the ground connection of my powered off DC power supply. And we know that this thing is doing it because when I disconnect the battery, the light goes out. So the battery is just providing the voltage to trigger the transistor. And the transistor is a much more energy efficient BC547C now. I'm going to have to clean that up and make it even tinier. So we have a much more energy efficient transistor. And again, we are consuming no current. Our resonant coil feedback is going back into the battery. Our voltage is pretty steady at 9.53. Might hit 9.54 soon. I can now disconnect the resonant receiver coils, clean it up a bit, and show you everything. So I will do this in real time. I will disconnect the battery. I'll start disconnecting and moving things. Just taking the excess feedback circuitry off of it so you can see everything better and get a better understanding of things. Remove the multimeter. Metal plate connection can go right here. I like doing all this in real time so no one can complain about anything. These are what one of the super resonant receiver coils look like. They are two 6-inch long ferrite rods taped together, and their outputs all in parallel. One rectifier per super receiver coil. I will remove them. I will put them over here. Put them over here. These are just the super feedback resonant receiver coils. I will now remove this other coil. Also, something to note is with this transistor, the device has become nearly self-activating. So hopefully everybody can see clearly. I'm going to try and get this all in frame. Everyone can see clearly how dead simple the circuit is. So this is all the circuit is. You take a 8-inch long met glass laced Type 77 ferrite rod. You wind a 28 gauge thin wire over the rod. Takes up 6 inches of the rod. And you then next wind a 16 gauge wire in the opposite direction over the rod. And the transistor is a BC547C. And you earth ground the hot output, a heavy earth ground connection. This green wire just goes right to my heater on my old farmhouse that's heavily earth grounded to my well pump. This metal plate, as you saw, is just an energy collector. So here's the circuit in all its simplicity, dead simple. And what I say and what I mean when the circuit is self-activating is, now that we have this utmost energy efficient transistor, it's almost like we can achieve zero voltage switching within it, meaning if this circuit, as you can see, is not connected to earth mains in any way. It's battery powered. In fact, we don't even have the battery hooked up in any way, just a normal 9-volt. I'll put them right here. The circuit is now self-activated. So if I hold this little receiver light here, it'll dimly light. Can you see that? The circuit is very dimly self-activating. And the reason it's so dimly self-activating is this transistor is so power efficient at switching, it's probably receiving pulsed input energy from the earth connection, causing itself to self-activate and switch. So we now have a device that is virtually self-activating, and when you power it up from the battery and resonantly, it enhances the self-activation process, and you can get wireless power output at literally no power input. So again, I'll show you how dead simple the device is. This yellow connection, I like to use all my antenna connections as yellow. The plate antenna just has a yellow connection coming off it. You saw that. All ground connections are green. Just one ground connection going to my heater. The circuit is dead simple. We power it off a rechargeable 9-volt battery. We limit the current with a 50K 5-watt carbon film resistor. It has to be carbon film when you deal with radio devices. It then goes through a potentiometer. I believe it's a 20K potentiometer at 1 watt variable. And yeah, the circuit has just become so clean and dead simple now. And it's self-activating. I think this is the way forward. Earth grounded here heavily. Give you a good look at it. Feel free to pause it or anything. Built a new desk. Built this baby out of scrap wood. You can see under it. There's clearly nothing under it. This thing is dead simple. The lab is cleaned up. I have another workshop down cellar that's cleaned up. The refinements have just been getting crazy. So, like I said, it's self-activating now, and this effect does happen outside when heavily earth grounded. It's almost like it's becoming a small MORAY valve replica, and we achieve the replication effect by using one of the utmost sensitive switching transistors, because it is the act of switching that's creating this effect, and we're almost in a self-activation effect by having a transistor that switches with nearly no voltage and nearly no current. The power is coming from the ground and providing the switching force to activate the transistor, and we still have wireless power present. As you see, this receiver coil is so sensitive, even if I touch it in certain spots, the light will get brighter. So it is becoming now a form of an energy harvesting device. We have no power on or input to this system. It is simply acting as a receiver now. And if you get a very weak ceramic magnet, you can tune the device even further by sliding the magnet along the rod. A good way to tune the inductance and capacitance, but I need a weaker magnet to do this because the system is getting more sensitive. So, gave you a good look at everything. I will now turn it on normally and power it on and show you the tuning process. All I have going on here is the battery passes through a current meter. So now we are on. I'm going to try and get this all in frame. I'd like all this in frame. So, this is the wireless receiver coil. Here's the LED light. I will back up. Put the glow on. Hopefully that'll be easier to see. So, when I turn this potentiometer and tune the device, it'll come on. Sometimes you might have to touch it. There we go, it's on. So it is on, we are consuming 5 milliamps. But we don't want to be consuming 5 milliamps, that's kind of a waste. So I fine tune it with the potentiometer down to the point we're at 1 milliamp. Didn't really put a degradation on our wireless power output. And again, I want that a little lower. 0.07. I think the best you can get it is 0.003. At least with this transistor. And still maintain the good wireless power output. Yeah, okay, so that's the best I think I can get it. And then what I do next is I bring in the resonant receiver coils. I put them... Well, you saw how they were arranged before I took it apart. I'm just giving you a clean view of everything. And the resonant receiver coils can have their power output combined to feed back into the battery, and the battery will never drop in voltage. Because what's essentially happening is we choked the current back with the correct value resistor and potentiometer. The transistor is so sensitive it's nearly self-oscillating within the system once you heavily earth ground it and use an antenna. Can you imagine if that antenna was the correct wavelength and properly mounted high up to receive and amplify these signals? But what blows my mind is just the range of the system. So we're consuming 0.3 milliamps. We're consuming less than 1 milliamp. And we have wireless power. Like, the efficiencies have become stupid and mind-bending. And this is an interesting form of power because any metal object near this device when it is on will accumulate a charge that can be tapped into without draining or affecting the source circuitry in any way. As you see, this is just a resonant coil sitting in proximity to the device, and holding this little receiver light near it causes it to light up at virtually no power input to stimulate the transistor into switching, and we still have wireless power output, which is very, very interesting. I've never seen something that efficient. So we can follow the leads where this goes. This yellow wire would just connect to the plate antenna. In fact, I'll even disconnect it. So we are just make the setup look cleaner. So we're just running this wireless light is being run off the super sensitive receiver coil. It's being run off the bulk of the coil and an earth ground connection. Right here, I can disconnect the earth even for you. And it still is slightly lit. In fact, I'll even disconnect it from here because the wire is acting as an antenna. As you see, the light went out. The green wire acts as a ground antenna. I will reconnect the ground wire now, and it immediately starts to light. And I will show you that this system is doing all this because I disconnect the battery. Hopefully you can see this. Everything goes out. We stopped consuming power. Everything went out. I reconnect. We start consuming power again. And the light comes on dimly. I will reconnect it back to my ground. So now we are grounded. The light is lit. And this has gotten very exciting. So yeah, again, to sum it up, we have a 9-volt battery powering the device. The 9-volt battery, we're measuring the current flowing through the circuit. The 9-volt battery is connected in series with a meter in current mode, so we can read the current going into the circuit. We limited the current being fed into the circuit with a resistor, a 5-watt resistor, and a potentiometer. We can fine-tune it with the potentiometer. We heavy earth grounded the system. That's probably where the excess power is coming from. And it's just stupid how efficient we are. Wireless power at virtually no input. And we can resonantly tap that power, combine the output, and we get phenomenal results. And why this is so interesting is if you have a generator that's consuming no power but yet outputting power, that's very important. You have a wireless resonant generator that consumes no power yet outputs wireless power. So, give you a good look at everything. This was a major breakthrough in efficiency. Give you a good look at everything. Feel free to study it. It's become dead simple now. These were the transistors that I'm using now. And I have even more efficient ones coming in. BC547C. Very efficient. We don't need the big transistor. I think the smaller the transistor, the more efficient it becomes. And I can show you the tuning process again with the potentiometer. When I tune it into high power mode, we'll see it consume more power. As you see, we are consuming 5 milliamps. But the interesting thing is there was no increase in brightness on the light when the circuit consumes 5 milliamps versus when it consumes 0.3. So I'm going to fine tune it now. And what's occurring is as long as there's a switching action within the system, we'll have wireless power made manifest in wireless receivers. Ooh, we got it to 0.2. That's really efficient. And and that's probably really the closest I've ever seen it. It's so close to being truly self-activating. If I can get a slightly more efficient transistor, I believe the system will be fully self-activating. We are now even lower at 0.2 milliamp power consumption, yet we still have wireless power made manifest. So, to scientifically sum this up as best as I can, because I use principles from the MORAY's valve, using retroductive reasoning and logic, trying to debunk and rebuild it. Essentially what's happening, I think, is we built a super sensitive crystal radio transmitter and receiver set with an earth ground connection and an antenna. The fact we have a heavy earth ground connection and an antenna makes us very non-linear, plus the fact we're using wireless power and we're resonant. And we then are basically using just the voltage from the battery to stimulate the switching. And the more sensitive the transistor that can achieve zero voltage switching or zero current switching, we're in business. We're then just needing a potential voltage source to trigger the switching, but we don't consume current. Yeah? Alright, anyway, yeah, so we're back. So back to the theory of how it's working. We're basically achieving switching at nearly no current cost, because in traditional electrical theory, if you go back to the ancients like Maxwell, Tesla, Steinmetz, they all say there's no cause and effect link between a transmitter and receiver. Meaning, if you get everything all fine-tuned up, there is no direct cause and effect link between a transmitter and receiver. If you're far enough away in the far field, the transmitter doesn't feel anything that the receivers are doing. The receivers technically become generators. So we can see that clearly lit. Power consumption is at 0.2. I would also highly recommend everyone to check out Ken Wheeler. A lot of his ideas and work helped me greatly. I know a lot of people love oscilloscopes and seeing the system hooked up on a scope. So I can connect that. Just give you a quick reading. Try and clip this here. See, even just touching the oscilloscope to it detunes it. So the frequency, hold on, I gotta get this started again. Okay, we're on now. So the frequency is that we are receiving is 1.23 kilohertz, I believe. Oop. And just having the oscilloscope connected detunes it and makes it consume a little bit more power. So that is the frequency. Light is dimly lit. We're consuming a little more power now instead. And the weird thing is, anything connected to the circuit starts emitting wireless power. So I will disconnect the oscilloscope. The light gets brighter, as you see. Just touching the oscilloscope to the light causes it to dim. That's how sensitive we're dealing with the tuning. So I will remove the scope. Try and get this tuned a little bit better. I had this at 0.1 on power consumption before. Alright, so keep in mind trying to fine tune. Ooh, okay, so it's probably the best we're gonna get it with that transistor. Now, keep in mind I can just grab another receiver coil, and we still have wireless power made manifest in this thing too. I have to connect this one in parallel with that one, and you'll see it get brighter. So I take an alligator clip, I connect it to this receiver coil, connect it in parallel with the other receiver coil, and you will see it get brighter. See that? It got brighter. The light is getting brighter just from another receiver coil connected. And I can even move this receiver coil around to the correct spot, and it will get very bright. Oop. It's at a state where it just doesn't want to act. There we go. So here we are. 2 coils in parallel now. Didn't even add the metal plate yet. I'll add the metal plate connection. Metal plate connection. Trying to fine tune it here. Okay, it's probably the best we're gonna get it for the video. I think you get the point. And there's basically no limit to the amount of receiver coils you can put around this thing and keep combining. So, good look at it. Our power consumption. And this was a major breakthrough. So, I'm probably going to start to be selling these units as the utmost efficient ones. And why this is getting very interesting is for the fact we have a wireless power generator at virtually no power input. And we can make 3 or 4 resonant receiver coils, combine their outputs, feed it back into the battery, tune it with the potentiometer to the point where the battery begins to recharge, and you essentially have a wireless generator that consumes no power, but yet outputs power. So that's why it's so interesting. The circuit is dead simple. The transistor is BC547C now. And in theory, to make this even more hyper efficient, we get a bit of a better transistor, and we coat the rod in barium titanate powder before we wrap the coils on it. That's theorized how to make it even more efficient. So, thank you, everybody. This was an update. And to end the video, I will show you the last interesting effect. I take just this block of machined metal, and this light will light up just just on the metal near it. Very interesting. And in case you don't think that this thing is doing it, I will disconnect the battery. Everything goes out. Nothing lights anymore. The system, however, is in a very slight state of near self-activation, as you can see. And if we can achieve an even more sensitive transistor, I believe that that light will get even brighter. So, again, thank you everyone, and feel free to have fun experimenting and to replicate this. It's just a Super Joule Ringer 3.0 circuit on a nickel zinc Type 77 ferrite rod, met glass laced. You can also use nickel zinc, doesn't matter. Met glass just helps a tiny bit, but you don't essentially need it. Transistor is BC547C. Heavily earth grounded, the hot output. Potentiometer to tune it. Carbon film resistor. And if you read my community post on my channel, it's fully detailed how to build this. You don't even really need the magnet for tuning anymore. It's optional. But thank you, everybody.